Hey, what's good? Victoria Broderick is a mom that works in the tech industry and now is running to represent Tennessee's 4th district. Joshua Sales is a history teacher that has written 12 bills by himself, and he is now running to represent Tennessee's 7th district. I wanted to check in with my Tennessee friends to see what's going on out there in Tennessee. Before we get into it, remember to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some clothes that I think would look good on you. Let's go. Hey guys, like I said in the intro, we got Victoria Broderick from Tennessee 4.
Hi guys, I'm Victoria Broderick.
Hi, Victoria Broderick. We also welcome back Joshua Sales, Tennessee 7.
Glad to be here.
So it's been a minute since we've talked, and we haven't talked together as a group. And I wanted to check in with you guys to see how your campaigns are going, see if you have any new KKK tips.
I just got to call it my
Now
district.
they're just called the Proud Boys.
Fact. I mean, that's not my district anymore, so.
Yeah. Are they doing the goofy things with your districts, moving them around, shaking them around, picking their voters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh, do you want to talk about it?
Sure. So yeah, Carlos, you're talking about the fact that just about a month and a half ago, Tennessee's state legislature voted to redistrict the entire state, right? The very second the Supreme Court gutted the Part 2 of the Voter Rights Act, Marsha Blackburn, our senator, got with Donald Trump, who then reached out to Cameron Sexton, our state legislative lead, and basically, arranged redistricting the state. That even though 35 to 40% of Tennesseans vote Democratic, they're aiming to make it a 0-9 representation state and effectively wipe out the voice of countless Democrats, primarily attacking the Black voices of Memphis by splintering that city, the county of Shelby, into 3 different districts and silencing the voice of those people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of, I think the unique part about Tennessee is we were already a supermajority. We have the unique, Carlos and I, we've talked about this, is we have the supermajority in our Tennessee state legislature, as well as we have all but one of our federal seats were held by Republicans, and we have a Republican governor. The point of this was to disenfranchise Black voters in Memphis, but also disenfranchise the entire state, because if they redistricted and grab more power, which is what they're hoping for in the 2026 midterms, then there's no stopping the Republican testing ground, which is Tennessee. Tennessee is a testing ground for Republican policy, but this could backfire on them. And that's where I want to give the hope to the voters. It made my district more competitive. As a candidate to running for 2.5 years in this district. Now I do have 4 primary opponents, but I've been running consistently in this district for 2 years, and it's made it more competitive, and it's made the district actually smaller, and the majority of my district actually stayed the same, unlike the rest of the district. I don't know, Josh, if yours stayed the same or not, but I know that mine stayed core the same because I lost 6 counties total.
We lost in Tennessee 7, we lost about 7 counties and picked up 3 more. To piggyback off of Victoria's point here, Tennessee has been the testing ground, right? We know our own state legislator has named that they got most of their marching orders from Stephen Miller. We know that Tennessee is trying to push all of these projects, whether it's vouchers, whether it's disenfranchisement, whether it's voter ID laws, what have you, to really create a dystopian state where there's very little a person can do to get ahead. And so there's the question, right? What can we do at the state level? What can we do at the federal level? To really talk about what Victoria said about a lot of these places became more competitive. right? Tennessee 7 went from an R plus 22 to an R plus 10.5. Afton Bain in the special election last year gained 13 points. If the candidate in 7 can do the exact same thing, T in 7 actually goes to the Democrats. In fact, 6 out of the 9 districts are now considered R plus 12 or below, which means if any of the candidates there can capitalize on that blue wave and can push the same ground game that Afton Bain ran, there are good chances that this completely backfires in Republicans' faces. But what us candidates need is for the people to get out and help us. Victoria and I can only make so many phone calls, can only knock on so many doors ourselves.
Yeah.
We need people willing to get out there and fight for democracy.
Yeah. And I mean, to just like add to that as well, I think that it goes to tell people like the only thing that Republicans are more afraid of than the Epstein files is voter turnout. That is the move.
That's
because it's the one
historically
thing
true.
and they can't control it. They can't control voter turnout. That's what, like, I tell people all the time, I speak to my constituents about this all the time, and I say this on panels everywhere whenever I'm traveling, whatnot. Voter turnout's the one thing they can't control. So that's why they make it harder and harder. They want you to feel like your vote doesn't matter. It's why they have done this. If you look at Tennessee, we used to be a blue state. We weren't always red. And we've been, even when we were a blue state, we never pushed for more supermajority like type policy, which we could have at the time. My district used to be blue. So we've always been more purple. And I think that the idea that like this election cycle, your vote doesn't matter is don't discredit that. We can flip these seats. I got 28% of the vote as a first time no name candidate in 5 months in 2024. If I can pull in those numbers when people with more money than I had, more name recognition, more time could only get 33 to 35% of the vote, that says that Tennessee voters are looking for something to believe in, and we're giving them that. And I don't know if Josh, I don't know if your district's like this, just to bring it all home, is whoever wins the primary, we have to support and move the team forward. Because the only way we fix this is at a federal level, but it has to go all the way down ballot. You cannot stop at the federal level. You have to go all the way down to dog catcher, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so August 6th will be the primary for the federal election here in Tennessee, but it's also the local general election. We have people in my county running for school board, which is massively important, right? I think school board is one of the races that often gets overlooked, where what they do affects the next 10 to 20 to 30 years down the line, right? We're talking the fact that like we have in so many counties across Tennessee, Moms for Liberty types, right? The ones who want to ban books because they're afraid your kids will learn to think for themselves by reading them. And they want to incorporate readings of the Bible. And I say that with no disdain towards Christianity. I'm actually, as a teacher, looking forward to that passing because I'm like, listen, we can go over how many times Jesus flipped the tables and how Jesus said, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. We can talk about how Jesus hated capitalism.
You think you're scared about voter turnout.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we're seeing this push to disenfranchise voters, whether it is literally through law or whether it is through a rhetoric of your vote doesn't matter. I think that's one of the number one things we see in Tennessee is this voter apathy.
Yeah. And a question that's asked quite a bit is, why should I vote? Does my vote even matter? And the folks that are running for office or trying to hold on to office, they all say, if it wasn't that important, why are they working so hard to take it away from you?
And
it's that simple. Go ahead, Victoria.
I put it as a so this is the analogy I use for it. You can either be the turf that politicians walk on, or you can be a player on the field. I'm a politician. If you want to be turf, I don't want that for you, because I want change. I don't need you to score the goals. I don't need you to punch up or whatever. I just need you on the field, because we're all a part of a community and we want our community to move forward. And if you don't want a choice, it's not a spectator sport. You're literally going to be the turf that politicians walk on. The spectators are the rest of the world watching you give up your right, your superpower, to be a player on the field, to be a bootlicker for people who don't care about your well-being. And that's why I want every single person to be on the field with me, because we're better together. And accountability starts with your activism and you being on the field.
And there's a historical precedence for this, right? When America was first founded 250 years ago, only about 6% of the population actually had a right to vote.
Mm-hmm.
That 6% didn't even vote for president, right? They didn't vote for their senators. And throughout American history, we have watched an expansion of those rights. We have watched, after the Civil War, African American males gained the right to vote. During the suffragette movement in the early 1900s, women gained the right to vote. And we've seen backlash, right? We've seen this. We take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back with the Reconstruction era, with what we're seeing right now. And it's something that I want to remind people, that we consistently move forward when we all work together. And to your credit, Carlos, like you named, right? They wouldn't be going after our votes if the votes didn't have some sort of power.
Mm-hmm. Imagine jumping in an Uber, and the Uber can take you wherever the hell the Uber driver wants. Wouldn't that feel a little strange? Like, if you jump in an Uber, wouldn't you want to tell the Uber driver where you would at least like to go?
As the woman here, I'm hopping out and doing a body roll. I'm gone. I'm out. No.
And I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
As like, this is one of the things that I think I said it to you, Carla, like when we did our interview a while back. Voting is public transportation. You don't need to buy a house with a white picket fence. You just need to get on the bus going in the direction you want to go. Every 2 years, you get the option to get off the bus.
Yeah.
And that's what you should treat. We're not anything special. I am no different than your barista that hands you a latte. The only difference is I hand you legislation, and both can ruin your day if they're not done right.
And please pay attention to the very first words of the Constitution. It says, "We the people." It doesn't say, "I'm the man and I'm going to take you to where we need to be." It doesn't say shit about building a useless arch. It doesn't say anything about messing up the reflection pool. It doesn't say anything about that.
But it does talk about promoting the general welfare. Right. And I think that is a clause within and listen, y'all, we are talking just the preamble, right? We're talking the very first paragraph of our Constitution, the bedrock of our entire country. And it names in it that our government is there to promote the general welfare. And that, to me, is where the discussions begin, right? What does it mean to promote the general welfare? And when we look at a tax system that from 1975 to 2023, according to a RAND study, transferred $79.8 trillion worth of wealth from the bottom 90% to the top 1% via trickle-down economics, that is not a system that promotes the general welfare. And we need to be honest with ourselves, and we need to start moving towards politicians who actually care to do what's going to help you, the people, no matter what the cost, right? Carlos, you and I have talked about so many times, we're told the money's not there until it comes time to bomb a school, a girls' school in Iran.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Or for drones that fly over New Jersey,
or to give some billionaire another government handout.
And that's the scary part, right, Victoria? Like we are looking at so many alarm bells going off at the same time. NOAA has had to readjust their graph for the El Nino. It used to top out at 4 degrees Celsius above normal. This year, they've had to go in and raise it to 5 degrees Celsius because they knew it was going to go off the chart. We know the international banking community has been screaming about the fact that AI companies are doing what's called shadow borrowing, right? This whole thing, if you go to a bank and you say, I want to take on a loan to build an expansion on my house, the bank says, okay, well, let's see your assets. What's happening with these loans is that the AI companies are hiding those loans on their records so that the banks don't see them. And so they are over leveraged. And we're being told that this is twice the level of what the housing market was in '08. And so we know that we're facing, again, a bubble within the stock market that when it bursts, if anything like '08 happens, it's going to be the American people, the working class, who are going to pay for it.
And I think that if someone's watching this and they want to see how it's already affecting, how the economy is like, and I say the economy because everyone thinks Wall Street, but like, this is your community. This is not just your milk and grocery prices. Look at your shelters, your animal shelters in your area. If you're seeing an uptick in more animals just being dropped and your shelters screaming for help, that is normally the first sign that something is going wrong. It's not the first sign, but like I'd like to point to this because it's a big complaint in my community, a huge complaint. And as someone who loves animals, I'm like, I remember this in 2007, 2008, when I moved to Tennessee. It was rampant and out of control. Every week there was a new dog dropped off. And we had at the time a kill shelter. So like if they got taken in, it's gone. And it's taken years to get past that. And even with TNR programs, et cetera, this decimates not only the ecosystem for our communities, but it decimates what happens to these family pets. These are your things. Like if you're looking at your cost and you're doing that, you're thinking about a gallon of milk, if you're going to buy a gallon of milk, or if you're going to have that subscription to Netflix. That shouldn't be something you have to think about. These are necessities now. They're not just things that you're like, oh, that's an extra thing. No. A lot of us are staying home now. A lot of us aren't going out to eat and get drinks and do the thing. And if you don't have enough money to live your life, you're a slave to the system, for lack of a better word. And that's not acceptable. And they want it to be that hard because the more they take away your community, the more they make it hard, the less likely you are to stand up, the less likely you are when really hits the fan, you're less likely. I mean, we watched this happen. There's historical precedent for it. And everything that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And we're watching it happen, and we're watching it happen in real time. And somebody's getting rich, and we know who that is. Follow the money. Like if your candidates are taking corporate money, if they're only taking money from rich people, that's a red flag. That means that they're already bought. They're bought and paid for. And we have to address it.
And think about this. If you have been in Congress, these are going to be shots fired. If you have been in Congress as much as a lot of our Congress people have been, where they've been there for 15 years, 20 years, and all this stuff, and I understand you to keep things moving, a lot of times you want to keep someone in office just because they know where the pencils are, and that's a shortcut, dumb shit like that. But at what point are we going to say, okay, we've been doing it like this for 20 years. The shit doesn't work. We need more people. We need fresh eyes on the paper so we can move the ball forward.
Yeah.
I think, right. It's a great question, Carlos. And I think the question isn't when do we, it's when do the DNC, right? When does the GOP,
Yeah.
when do the people who actually have like controls of these apparatuses start waking up, right? There was a poll I read just the
But
other
I
day
don't
that
think
said,
I don't think it's their responsibility though, because they're getting rich. They're doing what they're set out to do. I want citizens, the people that live in Josh's neighborhood and the people that live in Victoria's neighborhood, I want you guys to get well, and the people that live in Carlos's neighborhood, I want you guys to be well informed. And I want you guys to get a good feel for these other alternatives because more people are turning independent than ever before because they're tired of the left and they're tired of the right.
Mhm.
But the responsibility, at least in California, they make it so easy to vote. They just mail you your ballot. You fill it out, you sign it on the outside, and you put it in the mailbox. You don't have to buy a stamp. They make it so easy. And to make
So
it even
woke.
easier, this year I went on to ChatGPT and I said, ChatGPT, I'm filling out my ballot. Ask me whatever questions, ask me 10 questions that's going to help me understand better who I should vote for. And it asked me the 10 questions and I answered them wholeheartedly with honesty. I'm trying to make the right decision here. And so I educated myself instead of using ChatGPT to do all the creative shit that I don't have to pay an artist to do. I'm actually using it to learn, to see that maybe the incumbent, for as comfortable as everyone is with the incumbent, I actually voted for one of the new guys because the whole corporate PAC money thing is a big thing for me.
Mhm.
And it's bigger than APAC. I don't want GE to tell me. I don't want, the booze folks to tell me who's the best person, or I don't want their vote to outvote my vote, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
and I think, right, it goes back to us talking about the down ballot as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My mind goes straight back to how important it is for us to get good people into county commission, good people into the school board, good people into the county mayor, because these are the people who help decide what we teach our
Yeah.
children to the point that, like, if you're using ChatGPT as a tool, Carlos, okay, I want people to be so educated that they instinctively know to ask themselves these questions. They don't
Right.
Mhm.
need ChatGPT to write them for them. They can
Right.
just go, hey, okay, let me go in, let me look at who is giving money to these people. And that's public record. You can go into the FEC and look at who has donated to who. Who has, like one of my opponents in the primary, started with a $125,000 loan from their own pocketbook,
Yep.
right? That tells you, like, okay, they're literally self-funding themselves,
I
right?
know. I think
I
I know who that is.
Yeah, there is an individual that I'm running against who jumped into the race after the redistricting. He's worth, on paper, this is per his own filing with the FEC, over $50 million. And I'm like,
Woo!
how can you, literally as part of the 1%, say that you are going to represent people the same way I am when I'm
Right.
fighting the 1%?
I heard that teachers in Tennessee make a killing, though.
Okay. And I
Let
think
me,
before
but also,
Josh
like, there
throws
does need to
hands.
be something said about, like, besides for when I was managing restaurants, right? I'm thinking about back when I was a server, back
Mm-hmm.
when I was, a cook. Like, I am making more as a teacher than I was then, but I'm still struggling, right?
Yeah.
And it becomes this thing where I think so many people are, like, tired of hearing, oh, teachers need to be paid more. They do, but so do everyone else.
Mhm.
Right.
And
Right.
I think to like kind of round out like this topic of conversation, like how I got started was because I wanted to educate down ballot voters.
Mm.
And I wanted to share my experience and knowledge because you could take political spectrum tests every 4 years, there is a political test that comes out for president, and you can literally do it. It's all on policy, and it can be as surface level or as integrated as you would like it. And it will tell you who your presidential candidate is. And would you not believe it or not, every election, like the last election cycle when I did it in 2020, I shared this result on my TikTok page. I vote like a Green Party was the Green Party was the highest on my like vote, but I don't vote for cicadas like Jill Stein. So like that was a no for me. We're in a two-party system, and I don't vote for cicadas. So like I went down the list, and it was Joe Biden, and he had a 93% rating based on policy, based on the things that I cared about. And I was like, cool, I can vote for him. And I had other candidates. Trump was like down there at the very bottom, like 1%. I mean, like that is like the percentage it gives you for every single party on their platform, what their policy is built up. And I shared this because I want people to understand the political spectrum, because it is a spectrum. It is not just Democrat, Republican, socialism, communism, fascism. It is literally, there's so many pieces to it. And it's very integrated, and it depends on where you fall and what I always ask people, what's your policy? What are the things that are policy? Not your fifis, policy. And I think the more that we educate like voters, it means they come onto the field. It means they understand why they should be paying teachers more, and why that other people in the economy deserve equal pay. Because in Tennessee, you need $90,000 as a single income family to feel like you're afloat. You need $250,000 if you're as a family of 5. That's two adults, 3 children, to feel like you're afloat. The average income in Tennessee is like $60,000. Make the math make sense.
The household median income is 85,000.
Exactly.
Right? So the median household, so half of the households in Tennessee make below that, doesn't even hit that first number Victoria said, the 90,000.
And that is your bills paid. Your bills paid. You have like $5 left for that one coffee you're going to treat yourself to. And we all know you do it, so don't judge anyone.
Well, you shouldn't have to judge anyone, right? Because let's be real, that $5 coffee means ideally if this is where I get on my soapbox, you're not buying it from Starbucks, you're buying it from a local coffee shop. But that's sustaining the local economy. Right? If I'm only making so much money that all I can buy are my groceries and pay my bills, what economy do we actually have?
Exactly. That's why I try to remind especially normal poor folks. And by normal poor folks, I mean probably everyone hearing my voice.
Yes. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a poor.
Yeah. When they talk about the economy, they're not talking about you. They're talking about how much rich people are spending.
And this is the whole thing behind the new Trump Kids accounts, right? They want to get your kid invested into the stock market so that they fall for these things more and more. It's the same reason why we saw retirement shift from being paid by the employers to being an individual 401k. It's this designed to constantly make the worker more ingrained into the system that they don't benefit from.
Yeah.
It's like with your medical, vision, and dental being tied to your employer. If it's tied to your employer, you have less choice. You have less freedom. Also, your employer, to speak to the capitalism in the chat, because we all know that someone's going to be like, well, it's better. No, it actually benefits companies more if they're not worried about your health care. They actually, not only do they have to pay you more.
Companies don't want to pay. Companies don't want to pay for your health insurance. They don't want to contribute to your health insurance. They don't want to do that shit.
It makes it more competitive for them, but it also makes it more competitive for you, because if you're not what my mom, quote unquote, called a benefit slave, where you're having to rely on that, that health care, It's why I still work full-time running for Congress. I literally have like 3 full-time jobs. I work full-time, I'm running for Congress, and I have 2 tiny humans. And then I have a husband. I don't know if that counts as another full-time job.
And she's recording this podcast right before bedtime.
Yes, like he's literally on. Mr. Victoria for Congress is doing it. He's doing the best, guys. He's well taken care of. He is a
Thank you,
kept man.
Mr. Victoria for Congress. Thank you for your service.
But it makes it more competitive, and it means more, but they don't want that. They don't want you to buy from a local coffee shop. They don't want you to have choices and start your own businesses, because that means that they don't get a cog in the cycle and in the system.
Exactly.
Well, and there's even
they
another
want everything
dynamic.
to be a strip mall.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's another dynamic there that we're missing, right? When we
Mm-hmm.
separate health insurance from your workplace, which studies have shown 1 in 6 Americans are afraid to quit their job because of healthcare being tied to it.
Mm-hmm.
This actually benefits small businesses. Universal healthcare is beneficial. It's a net positive to small businesses. Small businesses don't get the same rates that big companies do. So they're having to pay more just to give you the same healthcare to be competitive. We want to see our rural areas, our small towns get built up. Universal healthcare has so many downstream positives between small businesses not having to pay that anymore, between the extra income in your own pocket that you get to keep instead of sending it off to a healthcare insurance CEO. That turns into not one $5 coffee a week, 3 or 4.
Sure.
And it turns into going out to dinner. It turns into buying your kid that Christmas present that they want that you weren't sure how to fit into the budget.
Those the entrepreneurial types, all that money can go into your own business. So you can start a business. Or if you have one partner that has to stay home to watch the kids or whatever it is, at least you might have the money that person who's staying home, who maybe wants to start a in-home business, whatever, at least you have that flexibility. You have that breathing room.
It also allows for healthier people, which leads to a better economy in general, because people aren't going to the emergency room for healthcare. They aren't ignoring bills or potential issues that could cost them millions of dollars. They're not going bankrupt anymore. And it creates this thing where if you're healthier, if you have there's less stress, that leads to happier individuals, which leads to a better economy, because you're going to make decisions like, maybe, you're going to buy that kid the thing that he wants for Christmas, but also maybe you're going to do a part-time job and have you do some sort of side passion that you wanted to do for decades, but because of needing the income and needing the health care or whatever, you're doing it. And these are policies that we can put in place day one in getting elected in Congress. This is not something that's down the road. I tell people all the time, this is a policy that we can put in place day one that immediately alleviates pressure for so many people who are struggling. And they don't want that, which is why they don't want you to vote. To circle it all back.
Right.
Which, Carlos, that is the second of my 12 bills, is a universal health care bill, in which the median household in America making $85,000 a year would only pay $50 a month. That's premium deductible copay. That is doctor visits. That is dental, vision, and mental health. $50 a month for the median household in America. Talk about freeing up how much extra money in your paycheck you would actually be seeing. And that's the thing, right? We constantly have Republicans screaming, this is socialism. Who cares? Right?
No. Not even who cares. If that's socialism, then why isn't it socialism when you're hitting up the government so we can flip rockets into into the ocean?
Yeah.
Why isn't it socialism when we give Elon Musk a loan?
Right. Why isn't it socialism when in 2008 all these fucking idiots went and crashed the world's economy and no one went to jail? Why wasn't it socialism when we saved all the banks, all the car companies?
And we already like socialism. Like that's the thing. If like what we're talking about is progressivism. It's progress. Do you like
And
your
it's not
8-hour
going to
workdays?
hurt. And it's not going to hurt the country. You know why? You know why? There's nothing but proof out there that it works. We know that universal basic income works because Dubai has it and all those people are wonderful. Everyone eats, everyone looks great. We know that fixing homelessness, they're in, I think it's Norway, they all but fixed it because they took homeless people off the street, put them in housing, and gave them social workers. And we know that it's affordable and we know that it can work because the United States is currently paying for all these wonderful programs for Israel to have. So we know we can afford it. We know that it works.
Yeah.
And we also know that like this is how we progress as a society. Progressivism
Correct.
isn't scary. If you like your 8-hour workdays, that's progressivism. If you like your weekends, that's progressivism.
If you like your child not to have to go to the factory, that's progressivism.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Like, I don't know what this obsession with going back to the Gilded Age is and why people want to Oregon Trail themselves out of here. But like, you do you, boo-boo. Just do it. It's fine. That's your right. I don't want to be a part of that. I've played the Oregon Trail game. I'm good. But if you want to do that,
nobody wants dysentery.
Nobody wants dysentery.
Nobody wants dysentery. Play that game too much. We've seen this movie. I'm good.
That was most of third grade for me, was just playing Oregon Trail on the computer.
Same. Millennials.
You're done with the work packet? Go play Oregon Trail. It's fine.
It was my favorite game to play. I was like, let me just buy up all the alcohol because I'm gonna be cleaning wounds and snake bites and stuff, and like, just hoping like it'll be fine. 6 barrels of gin later.
Dare I say
Carlos,
Tennessee whiskey?
I think this all circles right the need for voter education, right? Which I constantly I like to jokingly say which is why you should send a teacher to Congress. But it's so true, right? We need to have these conversations that we're not having. And that doesn't mean between you, Victoria, and myself, right? We are people who have educated ourselves. We are people who have already talked with other people and not just talk to people who agree with us, but people who disagree with us so that we can learn from them and sharpen ourselves. But these are conversations that 90% of Americans you start to bring up and it's, oh, I don't do politics. I don't talk politics. I don't want to get into that fight. And it's like, whether you want to or not is a privilege.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, everything is politics. And if you don't want to be involved, back to Victoria's analogy earlier, you become the turf. You become what everyone is stepping on. And I don't want that for you. It's part of why I'm a teacher, right? I'm trying to make sure that kids are educated and know how to question. I teach English rhetoric, and I tell my students, I'm like, the number one thing I want you to learn from me is asking the question why. Right? The thing that so many adults try and stamp out of kids, stop asking me why. Never stop asking why. Never stop questioning. Because the second you do is the second people can start pulling one over on you.
And they're just waiting. They're just waiting.
They're opportunistic. And I mean, and this is circling back to our experiences. Josh is a teacher. I worked in international domestic logistics prior to the Trump administrations because Trump in his term destroyed international domestic logistics. He wreaked havoc on it. And I paid the price twice for it. First with my international job, and then second with my domestic job, because of the way he mishandles. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't understand. And then, now I'm in a different field because that job went away and I had to find employment. I work in technology. I work with some of Fortune 500 companies and SaaS-based products. I'm watching AI and thinking, "Whew, guys, we got to get this under control," because it should be a tool. It should not be a replacement. It should only be a tool. And the amount of data it's gathering is insane. Like Carlos,
Insane.
your example with ChatGPT, I want you to ask your ChatGPT to talk like you. That's going to be your homework after this, because I bet you your ChatGPT can talk like you.
Time out. I am the teacher. I give the homework. Okay.
I'm just momming it up in here.
Fair.
I know
Well,
you saw how
Mom
quick I
takes
picked up my pen.
top of the rank, so we'll give it to you.
Look, we need more teachers in Congress. We need moms. We need working people in Congress who understand what the average Tennessean, average American is going through day in, day out. It's not radical to want you to be able to afford your groceries and have some money put back. It's not radical for you to need those safety nets and to have safe communities. You know, I say this like, I'm running on safety, affordability, freedom, and equity. Make it safe. I want your safety nets in place. I want your community set in place, safe and in place, because those things benefit you. I want it affordable because when it's affordable, you do more. And like when it comes to freedom, what good is freedom if you cannot afford it? What good is it? If you're not
or if
free,
you don't
is
have
the answer.
if you don't have the tools to enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's not free. If you can't get the health care you need, if you can't make the love who you love, get the medical care you need, then you're not free. And if you cannot afford it, you're not free. And it's equitable to say this is not a left versus right fight. This is a bottom versus top fight. This is a grassroots versus donor class. And you as the voter need to be asking those questions. The hard questions. Does your candidate take corporate PAC money? Yes or no? Who are the majority of their donors? Do they take APAC money? Because when you have a political opponent that's raised $700,000, it begs the question, where's that money coming from? Because the average American is struggling right now. My average donation is $22.47. That's coming from working people who are giving up, if they're working minimum wage, 4 hours of work. If you've raised $700,000, that begs the question. And that is facts. That's one of my primary opponents.
That's it. I think that as a newcomer to politics has been the most eye-opening thing, right? How much money actually goes into these elections.
Yeah.
The fact that millions of dollars goes into each and every one, and that is for every House race. That is for every Senate race. That is for every governor race. That is for every presidential race. To the point that we're talking billions of dollars every year going into getting people elected. And when the average person is so tired from working 2 jobs, so broke from paying all the bills and then some, it's hard for the average person to get involved into politics. And so all that's left, right, it becomes this like compounding interest of the rich keep getting richer. Like my grandmother has always raised me saying that, right? The poor get poorer, the rich get richer. And it is more true today than at any point in American history. We have more wealth inequality than the Gilded Age. We have, for the first time since like the 1950s, the working class is taking home the smallest slice of GDP. We know that Americans are suffering. And the thing is that we have politicians just pointing the finger at each other. And the truth is that we have people
and they're
on the
doing that
Republican
as a
side.
distraction.
Yeah. We have people on the Republican side. We have people on the Democratic side who are taking money from people they shouldn't be, right? Those questions Victoria brought up are questions that we're not just slinging at Republicans. They are questions that should be asked of Democrats as well, right? The question, Carlos, said you asked about APAC, right? That should be a question asked about every politician.
And down ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We deserve to know where these people are getting their funding from, where they're getting their help from, because I've said it on the campaign trail numerous times. When you take money from a corporation, you are beholden to that corporation, not to your constituents. In fact, Carlos, I think you even like clipped that last time. It's almost word for word. Like that's
Yeah.
how often I do say it, like because it's true.
It is true. And I mean, like circling back to this conversation of like, you have to do it all down ballot too, because you don't recognize the sinister relationship that the state of Tennessee has with Israel. I didn't know. I had no idea. I had no idea getting into politics what I had signed up for. I knew like the offshoot of it because I was a Democratic chair of a county party in a rural county. And I moved through the system that way. But as a political candidate, as someone who's running for office who's had zero support, I mean, I ran in 2024 as a first time no name candidate with no support. They ignored our district. And this is a product of the system because it was like a 22 plus district at the time. And we're against a 16-year incumbent. So people walked away. They're just like, we're good. Even now, the Tennessee Democratic Party and the DNC are only going to focus on Josh's race and District 5. They're not focusing on District 4. Does that mean that District 4 is not worth it? No, it just means that the system, which is an umbrella, has made it so hard. All the things that Josh is pointing out are products of the system. And then you compound that with people suffering, with people being tired. They're not going to get involved in their local county politics. They're not going to even have energy to go protest. If they're worried about their livelihood, if they're worried about catching a charge because they're protesting at No Kings, they're not going to do it. And that's exactly what they want you to do. They want you to do that. And, it goes all the way down ballot. It's like these races shouldn't be partisan at a school board or a county level, but they've become partisan because in 2010, there was a down ballot initiative with the Republican Party and they flooded Tennessee. And they started with school board races. They started with school board and county commissioner. And then they groomed, I hate that word, they groomed those candidates up. If you look at the trajectory of some of the Republicans, they were handpicked from school board races. I think like Marjorie Taylor Greene she was like a county commissioner. This is the trajectory of that. And we have to do the same. And that starts with candidates like Josh and I doing the work, even if it's exhausting.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I want to really bring home to the people listening to this is exactly what she was saying. If you pay attention, when MAGA was starting to froth itself up and they're right before they climbed on the Capitol like a bunch of monkeys, they were telling each other to run for local offices. MAGA infiltrated your local political offices because they championed themselves. They went out and they said, hey, if we want to get this MAGA thing rolling, we have to take the local offices and build from there.
It's worse than that,
That's why you have a lot of these knuckleheads. Anytime voting happens, there's like delays and there's all this stuff happening because we have knuckleheads in here trying to break the system.
And I kind of want to push back a little bit. It's worse than that. And it goes back further than that.
Yeah.
So this didn't start in 2016. It didn't start in 2010. This was a coordinated effort from the 1980s. And it started then, but it didn't actually start then. What really happened is you
I
had
was
the
going to say,
Southern.
Victoria, if you don't take this back to the Powell memo, we're going to really be pushing
I was going to say, we got a history teacher. We got.
I know. I'm literally going to go all the way back to slavery and say the most radical thing as the white person here, as one of the white people here. Slavery never ended. It rebranded.
Yeah.
Jim Crow never ended. It rebranded. That is why a segregationist who held office until 2002 was adopted into the Republican Party. He was best friends with my great-grandfather, a state senator in South Carolina. Do you guys know who I'm talking about? Josh, do you know who I'm talking about?
In
The name
2002.
Senator
escapes me.
Strom Thurmond.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what yeah.
Senator Strom Thurmond. He was adopted. This was a coordinated effort for decades. And yes, I love that he's rolling over in his grave because I'm going to go to Congress. But we digress. But it goes back
Hold
so
that
far.
banner
Josh,
high.
yeah.
And I agree with you, Victoria, right? If you've never read Dr. Heather Cox Richardson, highly recommend it. She has a book entitled How the South Won the Civil War. And what she discusses in it is the fact that all of these high-ranking members of the Confederacy, the vice president of the Confederacy, became a Georgia senator after the Civil War was done. He literally just got to walk back into the federal government, got a pardon, got to walk back into the federal government, and got to like write laws. The same man who was fighting our country. And we continue to see this, right? I think, Carlos, we talked about this last time where it's like a question I ask my students every year is, when did slavery end in America? And naturally they say, right, the Civil War. And I go, no, it's never ended. It's a trick question, right? The 13th Amendment, slavery shall be abolished except as a form of punishment. And so when you look at the fact that right now, ICE is detaining 93% of the people they detain have no violent criminal record. 65% of them have no criminal record, but they're being detained. And as they're sitting in these facilities, they're being put to work. And none of them are being paid. We have slavery in modern day America, and the Republicans are cheering it on.
Folks need to remember the Republican business plan sucks. The Republican business plan is whoever is the leader gets all the money, and that leader has to work you as hard as they can and pay you as little as they can. If you take everything they preach, everything that they put on Fox News, everything that they sell you on the Home Shopping Network, everything that they believe boils down to that. They have to make you work long and hard and give you the least amount of pay possible. That is their business plan. Victoria and Joshua
fascism.
are saying, we want to set you up for success. We want it to be where you can work and not have to worry about groceries. We want you to be able to go to school and not have to worry about paying the tuition.
Yeah. The number one form of theft in America is wage theft. And it is seldom prosecuted, right? And that's by design.
And they make it, because now you're talking my language. This is where I get this shit. I was in Hollywood. Well, I worked in the advertising in Chicago, and I worked in the movie industry in Hollywood. I used to work up to, I would stop counting at 100 hours a week. Not 2 weeks, not a month, a week. And they pay you by salary. So by salary, you're supposed to work 40 hours a week. My dumbass thinking, I'm going to pull myself up by the bootstraps. I'm going to work real hard and I'm going to make a name for myself and all that bullshit that they sell you. That shit doesn't work, especially if you are tinted in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't work.
Yeah. No. I mean, the saying itself, right, was meant to be a nonsensical saying. You cannot literally pull yourself up by the bootstraps. It's physically impossible.
Yeah.
And yet that is how we describe the American mentality. And it's almost fitting, right? Because like it literally translates to we are brainwashed into thinking that something that cannot work will work. And that is the definition of American capitalism.
Yeah. And it's all horseshit, because just take a look at the politicians. When you start running for, and I'm not trying to badmouth you guys. I'm just trying to make a point. I'm trying to make you a point. The first thing they do is, I need your money.
Yeah.
because there's a chore that needs to be done. There's a task that needs to be done. It's winning office. All right, cool.
Mm-hmm. And that's what literally and as freshman Congress people, what will happen is if we don't get enough of us elected, you know what the Hakeem Jeffries is going to do to Josh and I? He's going to sit us in a little
Stifle
room
you.
and,
Yep.
and he's going to say, hey, go do call time for the Democratic Party and raise
Yeah.
money. That
Yeah.
is literally what they'll do to freshmen. That is why we're telling you that you have to vote, because the more of us that are there, I can give
Yeah.
Hakeem a middle finger. And I can say, no, here's this legislation that I worked up with my friends at Flair and Courage candidates. And I can say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to come here to do the job that I want to do. And I'm not going to play ball, which is why you're seeing such a pushback. Just like the Republican Party pushed back against MAGA in the beginning, before they fell in line, the Democratic Party is watching the same thing happen. Parties are meant to change. Politics is meant to grow. The Constitution is a living document. Don't let anyone tell you that 200 years ago that every single one of those signatures was agreed with slavery, because they didn't.
Yeah, because what they know about the internet, they didn't.
And not all of them were religious.
What they know about 50 caliber automatic machine rifles,
exactly,
you know?
Exactly. And the assumption that these people 200 years ago, 250 years ago, didn't know that slavery was wrong, that enslaving a person, a living being, was wrong, saying that they all agreed with it is asinine. As well as saying that they were all religious is also asinine. Because the people who came over from Europe were religious extremists. Okay, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
Let me jump on that too. Because supposedly the Republicans are a bunch of business owners, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But to me, business owners are people that refuse to do their own work.
Are you talking about like a micromanager? Because I think we got one in the White House, because he's not very good at his job.
No, he's I can't imagine all the things that we haven't seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
This is just what we see. And I've been telling people this about AI and stuff like that too. I can drive to Silicon Valley and be there. Well, traffic is I can probably be in Silicon Valley in about an hour, hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty close. When I tell people this is the AI that you see, that's what they're showing you. We're not seeing all these idiots in their garage or in their basements, like tip tap 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 tapping away.
When it's already freaking out. We're gonna iRobot this, guys.
I'm telling you.
We've seen this movie. I don't
When
know about you.
one and again, it's public record, right? We know that some of the AI companies, Anthropic, right? The fact that Anthropic was disowned by the federal government because Anthropic said, no, you cannot use our AI to make killer robots.
Yeah.
And the federal government said, cool, we're not only dropping your contract, we're going to say you're a national security threat. And then OpenAI, who just ChatGPT, said, we'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Bomb away.
And we know, right? There is a lot of evidence to it. Hasn't been proven, so I don't want to say it has been, but there's a lot of evidence pointing to the girls' school in Iran that was bombed was targeted by AI. There's a massive theory about that as to why that actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
That the school was named after like a famous general. And so like the AI just thought it was a target and attacked it.
Yeah.
And it's scary to think that we are literally handing over control of the strongest military in the world to Israel and AI.
And trying to meld them all together.
And I mean, like, it gets more sinister. Like, when you have tech companies like, Facebook and YouTube building literal profiles out of children every child in the United States or just across the world will have a platform, like a whole, like this is who they are before they turn 18. Say this child is born in 2020 and does not touch any, like does not get on social media until 18. 18 years, and it's literally they're getting online, like they're getting online here soon. Like they have we have to put these in, because we've seen this. When you have AI, like technology like AI in the background, you have tech companies grabbing data and saying, this is the child, this is what they're interested in, building out profiles on them. And you have AI now coming into the mix and literally telling you what that child will be. Again, we've seen these TV shows. We've seen the movie. We know how this ends. It's like, why do you guys feel the need to live this out? Like, again, like if you want to Oregon Trail yourself, go ahead and do it. I'm good. I've seen the movie. I'm good. But we have to put these in place, and we put a literal person incapable of managing anything into the most respected, or at least used to be the most respected office in the world. And we've given him just free range to just do whatever. I'm sorry, no, like this is not acceptable. What is happening? And he's just throwing ketchup at the wall somewhere, guys. Like we need representation that understands, that actually has some critical thought, and he doesn't have any of that. He's too busy seeing as someone getting a red card at the World Cup game, as well as yelling about what, I don't know, making some AI video about Rosie O'Donnell. Like this is what this man is doing with his free time, and he's doing all of it. Like there's no mistaking that is who's doing those midnight tweets. Like that's him, because he's a micromanager. He's just a deranged micromanager and an old man. Yes, I hope you see this, dude. Like you're an old man at this point. Somebody needs to take the ketchup and the phone away from Papa and stick him back out in the backyard and say, go eat your pudding. Like move on, bro.
And hose him down.
And so I think when that's the conversation we're having, right, it needs to be a question of like, how did we get here? Because if we don't understand how we got here, it's that much more difficult to understand how we get out of it and how we prevent it from happening again. And like one of the major things goes back to gerrymandering, right? When we see more and more intense gerrymandering, we see Thomas Massey stood up to Donald Trump and got gerrymandered from the right, got pushed from the right, lost his election. And especially after the latest ruling by the Supreme Court, where now political parties can infuse money into races, which I want to be clear, it's not for primary races, it's for general ones. But there's so many tools in the arsenal of the GOP and the DNC to get the person that they want elected in office. And it reminds me, when we're talking about the Constitution and we're talking about the first president, Washington's farewell address literally warned us against party politics.
Mm-hmm.
And yet here we are today. And it's one of the main reasons why I am so vehement to point at a Democrat doing wrong before I point at a Republican doing wrong. Because I want it to be clear that I am not playing by party rules. I am playing by what is truly best for the American people.
Mm-hmm.
What is best for the people I am seeking to represent. And if I can't stand for that, then I shouldn't be your representative. And to me, it doesn't matter if it's a Republican policy or a Democratic policy. I like to joke. I agree with Ronald Reagan. 1986, he did his migrant amnesty bill that took 3 million migrants in America and made them legal citizens. I think that's a great policy that we could bring back. Individuals that have worked hard and deserve to be actual American citizens, and allow them to be that so that they don't have to hide in the shadows. Reagan in the 90s said we should ban assault weapons. I agree with him. Richard Nixon said that clean air and clean water are the birthright of every American citizen. There are so many times where it's like the Republican Party has walked away from what it once was. The Democratic Party has too. If you look at Kamala Harris and you compare her policies to JFK,
Kamala. Sorry.
you're
It's
right.
Kamala. Sorry. I was like,
My
I'm gonna
apologies.
do it. I'm gonna do it. You're fine.
It's fair. You should correct someone when they say you're wrong. But the point stands, right? We need to hold our parties accountable, and that starts by holding your own party accountable.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's by
And
calling
accountability.
and voting.
Yeah.
You have
Accountability
to,
is hard.
yeah. Yeah. And there's more than that normal folks can do. You can communicate. You can go to your representative's office. You can talk to them. We know Republicans are cowards these days and they don't do the town halls and stuff like that. But hopefully they'll pluck their heads out of their collective asses and hopefully we'll get back to actually communicating with the people that we give these jobs to.
Yeah.
Don't hold your breath while you're waiting for that.
Yeah, no, I know. But like, think of it like that, you guys, like normal folks. Think of it like every time you go somewhere, when you go to work, you get income taxed. When you shop, you get taxed. When you die, you get taxed. When you do anything, you get taxed. So all this money that they're nickeling diming you, they're putting in this ball. Now, what are they doing with that ball? Do you want all that money to go to killing people overseas? Or do you want it to like fixing infrastructure and fixing the schools so you can maybe have some after school programs to keep the kids busy instead of spray painting on the walls that piss you off?
But how does that make Boeing money?
And even before we get to that, like, we know that it works. Just go to the rich neighborhoods. Do you know what you know where the term soccer mom came from? From the rich neighborhoods. The moms having to drive these kids to all these fucking after school programs. You know why? Because you want a constructive member of society that's well ingrained, that sees how it works
That
when it works.
It uses alliteration about being a player on the field. Hint, hint, wink, wink. I used to play soccer.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is that.
And your
that
mom.
And I'm a mom. Light bulb. But like, just to like bring this like as a conversation, I talk about it. I got this from one of the creators that I follow. Activism is a muscle. Just like any other muscle, you have to stretch it. You have to exercise it. I would have never told you in 2021 that I would have touched politics and running for office with a 9-foot pole. I would have never. If you asked me in 2023, like just 4 months, that was the first time I ever considered running for office. Now, at that point, I had been a county chair for 2 years, or almost 2 years. And people, apparently, I didn't know it was a political trajectory to be a county chair and then immediately run for office. But people asked that question. And I said, I got no issue. Nope, I'm not running for office. I'm terrible at public speaking. I don't want people like that. I'm good. No, it's a no for me. And then fast forward, I find out my opponent in a district that has been underrepresented, that's been gerrymandered, that's been ignored by both the Republican Party and the DNC, that he's going to run unopposed. And I say, over my dead body, and I pull a petition after some liquid courage and a weekend and just walking in and telling my husband after a call just like this that I'm going to run for Congress. And here we are. I would have never, you go look at some of my speeches from 2025 or 2024. They were terrible, awful. I literally, I want to crawl under a rock and die when I watch them. But you know what? I'm learning and I'm doing something that the majority of people will never do. They'll never understand that. And you don't have to run for office. I want to make politics boring again. I want to give you that good West Wing feeling and know that your representation is like representing you. But like, you just have to pick something. So start small, feed a neighbor, go out and help your local community, go pick up some trash, and then maybe go to a county party meeting. and just listen. Just say, hey, I'm new here. I just want to listen. They want you there. They're going to want to sign you up for everything. But first and foremost, they want you there.
Give them a fake number.
Yeah, give them a fake number. You know, as a rural county chair, do you know how many times, never mind, I was ghosted by people for that same reason?
I belong to my rural county party. I understand perfectly. I just also know that, yes, the second a new person walks in, we're like, sign up for this and this and this.
I mean, I'm literally on the Democratic Party. Like, I'm an EC member. Like, I represent a district. I'll be on the ballot twice. But that was my answer. I saw all the like, basically walls that were put in place to stop people like me and Josh from running for office. And I said, okay, I'm going to climb it, because that's just who I am. That's just my personality. And, you know, that's not everyone's cup of tea. That's not everyone's going to do the thing. But we have to have people willing to do it. I recognize we have a two-party system, and it is broken, and it needs fixing. And until there is a clear path for a third party, we have to work within the confines in the system. So what am I doing? Actively changing it from within, to the point that I'm probably pissing off people. Ken Martin knows who I am at this point. Like, he knows who I am. And that's not for the fact that I'm running for office. Like, it's partly because of that. It's about that topic that we were talking about offline, which I'm not going to mention here. But that's part of the reason, like, this is how we bring change. I'm going to be a thorn in all of their sides, because I'm fun-sized and feral. I'm a lot of things, but above it's not one of them.
And I think, right, it's good to name that, using that analogy, right? Activism is a muscle. Just like any muscle, doing it the first time is the hardest. Right? But once you start doing it, and once you start repeating it, and once it becomes a pattern, and once it becomes a part of your life, it gets easier and easier. And
once you start finding your people.
Yeah. The amount of people that have told me that going out and volunteering is almost better than therapy. Like, the feeling it gives them of like, oh, I am actually making change. I actually saw, I was out picking up trash, and I could turn around and see how much cleaner everything was. I was out at a food bank giving out food, and I could see the look in someone's eye that they were going to be able to eat that day, and they were satisfied because of it. I was out doing this or that, canvassing, and whatever it may be, however you find your way to plug into your community. But you got to have the energy, and you got to have the time. And that's why we need politicians who are pushing for, no, we need the 40-hour work week to be paying enough for a person to live their life. We need utilities to go down in cost. We need groceries to go down in cost. We need to break up the 4 companies that own 85% of the beef production. Why is beef $12 a pound now? Because they want it to be. Because that is how they make the most profit.
Yeah.
They don't care about you. They don't care about your family. They don't care about your livelihood. The way capitalism is designed, and I want to be clear, because like, I have read Adam Smith. Capitalism was not always designed this way. This is a more modern feature of capitalism, where the mindset is, how can I make the most profit? And the answer is, charge more, pay labor less.
And I mean, candidates are changing. Like, this is something I had a 20-minute conversation with the chief of staff of my Republican opponent. They don't like, the Republican Party does not like politics, but not because of the crazies on the like right doing the crazy, like whatever posting, or even the Democrats, because it allows a level of accessibility and education that has not been had. Candidates now, I equate it to being a triple threat, old school Hollywood. Carlos, you might like this. We have to be able to sing, dance, and act. There is a level of that now that it's just like when Nixon and Kennedy debated each other. It is changing the sphere. It is making us more accessible in a way that we haven't had before. And that means that candidates have to be more dynamic. And that's what we're witnessing in this election cycle, where we're seeing status quo politicians losing to non-status quo politicians, because we have to be able, I can pinch a penny. Look, I can like my primary opponent might have $700,000 that he's raised, but I can outwork him. I've outworked him for 2 years. I can outspeak him because I'm standing on principle. I have had practice from doing it every single day, because I don't just do this. I work and I do debate lives, and I engage with voters in a way that they've not been engaged with before. And that speaks for itself, and it will play out in the primary. So maybe I won't have $700,000 in the bank, but you know what I will have? 2.5 years worth of work.
And that's, to Victoria's point, right? Getting out and talking to constituents in ways that candidates don't do, right? I had a woman, I was at the Sumner County Strawberry Festival, and I asked her, like, oh, do you have a plan to vote? And she's like, I don't vote. And one of the county party people was like, oh, just let her go. And I was like, no, like, this woman needs to be talked to. And so I had a 30-minute conversation with her that by the end of it, she was like, okay, when's your election? Because I'm voting for you. Right.
yeah.
I was in Trousdale County the other day and asked a group of people, like, hey, what's something that matters to you? And they brought up Social Security. And so I started talking about my Mustard Seed Act, which revokes the income cap and turns capital gains into something that FICA can touch, and bans Congress from ever touching Social Security again. 3 things that guarantee Social Security becomes solvent for the next 75 years, and actually might let us allow retirement to go from 67 to 65, walking it back for once. And one guy started going off about, like, oh, well, what about the scams and the fraud? That's 100 million compared to the 400 billion I'm talking about that the 1% don't pay into because they have scammed you into thinking they don't have to. And he walked away, and this woman goes, Josh, I want to tell you 2 things. One, I am actually the treasurer for the Republican Party in this county. And I was like, okay, we're about to fight. She goes, and 2, if you're in the general election against Matt Van Epps, I'm voting for you.
Love that.
Because these people, they want to be talked to. They don't want to be talked at. They want to be talked with.
Right.
And I mean, I've witnessed this too. In 2024, I was at a forum. I was the only congressional candidate to show up for District 4. My opponent I didn't have a primary opponent. My opponent didn't show up. None of his opponents showed up because he was primary. And I'm at this forum, and they asked it. I was told it was going to be softball questions. I'm still learning at this point. I've talked about politics for a long time, but I'm still learning the ins and outs. And they asked a question about the economy. And I was like, well, you're not asking me about the economy. You're asking me about milk prices and grocery prices. And the Republican chair of the party came up to me afterwards and said, you sound moderate. And I was like,
the amount of times I have been told by people that they think I'm the moderate candidate, I'm like, I'm literally the most left candidate in my race. It's that the way I talk about it, and I make it sound reasonable because it is reasonable.
Yeah.
Again,
what's moderate about the Republican Party?
Yeah. But how much of that is the fact that you guys, I don't know how much trans issues you have to deal with out there, but do you guys think that you're a little more moderate because you're not talking about men and women's sports and all this stuff?
I mean, so for me, I
use the
Gloria
distracting
Johnson's
parts.
approach.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm like, that's not affecting your grocery prices. And I'm like, that's yeah. I use Gloria Johnson's example. It's like, do you want the government to have more power? Because if you want me to legislate someone's body, then that's more power to the government. I kind of flip it of that's a governing body for it's whatever the athletic body is. I can't think of it at the moment. Do you want me to take that on? Because if you want me to take that on, then you're advocating for more government. Or, radical thought here, we just leave people alone. Because I was like, you're talking about 10 you're talking about 10 children. You're talking about 10 children across the globe. Why are you bullying 10 children?
Yeah.
There are bigger things that we have to address, and I'm not worried about a child who needs the medical attention and love and care that they need. Like, just like, rules that apply in my house, there are rules that I have in my house that don't apply in other people's homes. And that's the same in everyone. I know that when I leave my house, I'm part of a community. And like, speaking to like what Josh is saying, activism does allow you to have a community. And when you're part of a community, it feels good. We're meant to be a part of a community. And I don't think that I'm not skirting these issues. I don't know. I can't speak for Josh, but I'm not skirting these issues. If I don't know the answer, I say, I don't know. But here's how I will approach this. Because I've done that before. And I think that that's what they're not expecting. When they're not expecting us to speak out actively about things, and they don't know what to do with us. And I mean, I do a ton of debate lives. So like, I have a lot of practice dodging the BS and not taking it personally, because when the personal attacks come out, that's an emotional response to someone not knowing. I gentle parent them, which they hate. But like, that's them not knowing how to respond. They're in an emotional state. And that's all the Republican Party can platform, is keeping you in a state of heightened fear and, emotion, because you're less likely to make good decisions. And that's not a product of you. It's a product of the environment, which is why they don't want us to put these policies in place. So to answer your question, I don't think it's that we're skirting these issues or not even having them. I think people are just so exhausted and so tired of status quo politicians. They want someone that they feel like they can go have a coffee with or some water with. Or if you're feeling froggy, we can go get some brown water because I live in the whiskey district. We can have a conversation. They want someone that that understands what they're going through. And I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would echo Victoria's sentiment around this thing of like, I never skirt around these things, right? If you look at my 12 bills, none of them are designed to talk about trans people. None of them are designed to talk about like any of these like buzz cultural issues. They're designed to focus on what is affecting every American, right? We know that 1 to 4% of the population fall under the category of transgender. 100% of Americans need to drink water to live. 100% of Americans need to have a job or be with someone who has a job to pay the bills. 100% of Americans need food to eat, school to be educated, all these things, right? And so it's a thing to me where I tell people I am focused on what is going to get the biggest gain for Americans the fastest. Now, if you want to ask me specifically what my opinion is, what my view is on trans rights, they're human rights. Because I'm not going to hedge that. I will say that outright. I just don't think that's the thing we should be focused on when 68,000 Americans are dying because they can't afford health care.
And you know damn well that you don't have anyone in your high school trying to play sports on whatever team.
Well, I mean, it goes here from sorry.
I was going to say, it goes back to years ago when they were saying that like teenagers in schools were asking for litter boxes. Like, it was just an outright lie, right? It's the Haitians are eating the cats and dogs. It's lie after lie after lie.
Hey, and let's go even further back than that. That's why they made weed illegal. They said that the blacks and the Mexicans smoke weed and have sex with all the white women.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that happens before the weed.
It sounds like that Family Guy episode.
He does. It's this thing of, and Victoria, you touched on this, it's the fact that Republicans want you distracted. They want you in this heightened state of emotion that
they want you to feel comfortable that they're going to take care of it. Don't worry, I'll take care of it for you. And then they say, "Ooh, since I took care of this for you, I need the spoils because I'm
Yeah.
very important."
Mhm.
And very
And I
important
mean,
people need to be living large. Look at the pastors. Look at the Congress
exactly.
people.
Mhm.
Look at it's crazy.
We're literally applying for a job where we only work 180 days a year, which sounds wild to me. Because I'm so used to
147 last
working.
year.
Exactly. And I think that this goes to this other part. We're not going to, like, if winning an election by disenfranchising a marginalized community is what you want me to do, I'm not your candidate.
Yeah.
If you want me to throw away someone's rights because it makes you feel more comfortable to vote for me, I'm not your candidate. And
Yeah.
like that is not a radical thing, but people respect it.
Yeah.
They respect that you stand 10 toes down. Everybody
Mhm.
Yeah.
respects the pedo in the White House. Like they all respect him because he said the thing and made them
Exactly.
feel seen. And let's give it credit where credit is due. He spoke to an issue, but he took it and weaponized it and took over a party. And they are all kowtowing to him. Republicans fall in line. Full stop. There is no chance that the Republicans won't. That is why my lawyer is no longer voting Republican. He is a big fan of me. But I'm watching Republican after Republican come and speak to me at No Kings, speak to me at town halls because I'm hosting them, speak to me in public and say, I'm voting for you. And I'm having conversation with people who left the Republican Party and they're not going to Democrats. They're going to like progressive working class politicians and candidates because they know we're speaking to what they already care about. And
Hmm.
we're not skirting the issue, but we're also not making that our entire personality. Like, there's nothing radical about saying trans rights are human rights. There's nothing radical about saying what's going on with ICE is unacceptable and that it needs to be abolished because when you have an organization that's infiltrated with as many white supremacists as it is, and it is literally violating the Constitution and human rights, there's no fixing it. We already have a platform.
Hmm.
The INS was what we did prior to 2003. And
Hmm.
we could go back to that. And we should go back to that and make change. But this is what we're fighting against, and that's what we're seeing. And that's why they don't know what to do with us. Because candidates like Josh and I aren't going to kowtow to corporate money or corporate interest or even the party. Because we're saying, no, we like accountability. We're going to call it out.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to share with people on this podcast. I talk to a lot of political hopefuls and creative folks too, but the the politically minded people that I talk to are, I believe 100% of you guys that have been on this show have been the courage candidates that are saying that you are willing to do this job for the salary. You don't need all the extra bonuses. You don't need the millions of dollars that these people keep saying that they need. You guys are willing to do the job for the salary.
Yeah.
My wife and I have discussed, should I win, right? One term of being Congress would set so much of my life differently, right? I could pay off what student loans I have. I could pay off my car. I can buy her the new car she needs. We could get the roof repaired like we need to. We can get all this stuff done. And then I could go back to being a teacher with no debt on my plate and be
That'd
happy.
be sick. Yeah.
And
And that's the radical thing is, we have to we have to have a place to live in DC and here. And he's literally saying that we can do that because we understand how to penny pinch because we're not spending money on our third jet.
it blows my mind, right? So
And or
travel is
yacht.
paid. Yeah, travel is paid for. And then your congressperson gets a living per diem. And it breaks down to if they're in DC for 180 days, it breaks down to about $200 a day. I've looked You could get a nice hotel in DC within walking distance of the Capitol easily for $200 a day. That I'm like, I'm
Literally was
happy
just
with
there.
that.
Literally just there. Literally possible.
So, when you have Mike Johnson saying, "Oh, well, we need to allow Congress to buy and sell
Do
stocks because they
insider
can't afford
trading
to
and
live
stuff.
otherwise." Yeah, allow them to do insider trading. It's like that is
These are the
he's
tricks.
lying to your face.
Yeah.
Or he's saying we the Congress person deserve a better life than what you have. And the truth is, I think we should honestly, if we want to be representatives of the people, we should be fighting nonstop for their pay to be better. I would love
Yeah.
if, again, Congress is paid if all you're doing is showing up, right? You're not in any committees, you're not in anything like that. Because if you are in committees, you get paid extra per the committee. But if all you're doing is showing up and doing the base job, it's $174,000 a year. Again, the median income in America, the median household income in America is 85,000. That's almost double the median income, household income.
Yeah.
And yet they complain and say they need more. How are you supposed to live?
And they say they need more while also knowing that they're getting lobby money. They're getting money on
Yep.
the side. This is not like, how are you not? And they're not living in district. Like, I've already had this question. Someone asked me, they're like, well, what are you going to do? I'm going to live in my house. I like my house. Granted,
Yeah.
now because of redistricting, I have to move, but I'm a lot of things, but above it's not one of them. So call my bluff. Cool. Like, this is how is it that they are not living in their district? My opponent, like, his chief of staff straight up lied. I've got videos coming out, guys. Straight up lied and said he's in district. He's in district. No, he's not. He has been my elected representative basically since 2012. 2012, my family has owned property in this district the entire time. I've owned property like 5 years. Yeah, because my oldest is 6. So about 5 years. He's never had a town hall here. His last town hall was in 2013, and his chief of staff is over here saying, "Oh, well, we don't call it town halls." I got words for it. You're not gonna like them, and they're over there trying to gaslight the candidate and a constituent who's literally speaking for constituents. Because I'm the one who's out in the district talking and having these conversations. I'm the one who sees your nice little office and the fact that you got a little snack center for your interns who are catching the brunt of your crap boss. And I'm saying, you know what? Those M&Ms, how much do they cost? Because I can think of some kids that you would tell they don't deserve that on Snap. Why does the intern, we know the interns aren't getting that because you're putting them on phones. Like, you're making them answer your questions. This is the fundamental problem. We have to be connected. We have to treat it no different than your local barista. Like, it is the same. It is the same. And if you're looking at a politician and thinking otherwise, and granted, yes, there's a lot of stress. Can confirm, got gray hairs, been there, done there, got the t-shirt. It does not change the fact that better representation is possible and that there are hard parts of this job. But you know what makes it easier? A happy constituent, a happy community, a cared for community. We can bring change. I don't know if that sounds radical, but apparently that's radical.
Yeah, I think the message needs to again, normal folks need to continuously hear that, because normal folks see what's happening, and they've been seeing what's happening, and they see that when someone finally makes it into office, they get the big check and it blinds them. And then they see the Mitch McConnell's and how it's possible that this dude is dead, and the Republicans are
They're
lying.
He's definitely,
And
he's
then
brain dead.
and then look
There's
at
no way.
And then look at what Elon did by stealing all your social security numbers and all that stuff. And then they're playing footsie, and he gets his money to flip rockets, and then it was supposed to be a rocket thing, but no, now it's an AI thing, and all this stuff. And normal folks, listen, we have a good group of people that are promising you they're not going to take this money. There's these small coalitions that you don't ever hear about, that's having these guys promise not to take money. And they're saying, if I take PAC money, take my job away. I talked to all of these people from East Coast to West Coast. I'm talking to all of them. You should hear about some of the stories that are coming from Florida. The Florida DNC is trash, from what I understand, is trash. They've all but given up on on Florida. So all these Democrat grassroots candidate folks, they're having to fight by themselves up against people that are getting funded by AIPAC that don't do shit for you. But you can go to Israel with some health insurance and you can get an abortion. That's for fucking sure.
That's for sure. And I think this is where we need to pull back the veil a little bit for people. It is not like what you see on Scandal when a campaign is running. It is not like what you see in West Wing or in The American President. It is not the same. That is the exception. That is not the rule. A lot of these candidates are working with skeleton teams if they have a team and can afford it. They're working with a loyal volunteer base where you're literally just trying to figure it out. And they're
volunteering their time,
not paying themselves back, because Lord knows there's an FEC rule for everything. And they're doing this knowing that they can lose their careers, they can lose their livelihood, they can do these things. And it's still not good. They can lose at the end, and everyone's going to blame them. And yet they're still showing up. They're still doing the thing. They're still advocating for change. This is what is so important and vital in this. People ask me, well, why did you sign on to a race with 5 months to go? Well, I had to find my why, and my why was to move the needle. And if I just moved the needle a little bit, that was good. And it felt gratifying. Turned out I moved the needle a lot more than I thought.
Yes,
because
ma'am.
In 28% of the vote as a first-time no-name candidate, I had a quarter of the money. I had a quarter of the time. I did not have Democratic support at all. I was learning on the campaign trail how to speak, how to do the thing. And the system didn't want me. And I proved the system wrong. And now the system's fighting me again. There's no way that they did not, because they didn't vote in the state of Tennessee, they did not vote to tell us which congressional members, sitting representatives, were a part of this redistricting. They did not vote that. We don't know. We know Marsha Blackburn, Grandma Gone Wild, as Afton calls her. We know that not Ken Paxton, I'm sorry. We know that Bill Lee and whatnot were all involved in this. We know that Stephen Miller involved in it. What we don't know, and what we can safely assume, is every single Republican sitting representative was a part of this decision. Why? Because they wanted to protect their money. When you have a sitting member of Congress who's been in office for 16 years and doesn't feel like he should have to have town halls, meet with constituents, literally bought a private building and a private office so that they could keep constituents out. That tells you all you need to know. And this man has been in office since 2012. Everybody knows his history. They don't care about you. And the Democratic Party, they're trying, and there are some of us that are trying, but we need you. So show up. Pick Activism is a muscle. Pick something. Do it, and do it today, and vote on August 6th, because Josh and I need you. If you like what we're saying, vote. If you like it even more, donate. If you like it just that much more, come volunteer. That's my pitch.
Victoria's absolutely right. It's so many candidates clearly do not care about their constituents, right? So many of these candidates are wrapped around with hypocrisy. Matt Van Epps, my Republican opponent in the general, went off when Virginia voted, allowed their people to vote to redistrict, went off about how that was such a horrible thing and we shouldn't have that. And then when Tennessee did it, he was silent. And I called him out on it on the campaign trail, and he dodged it. And he continues to dodge it because there is no answer besides for the
Cheating.
Republican Party wants power. They want the money. They want to control you. And candidates like Victoria, candidates like myself, you have candidates all over Tennessee. Christy in 1, Michaela in 2, Anna in 3, Victoria in 4, Crowley in 6, myself in 7, Pearson in 9. All of us are literally saying, we don't care about doing what the DNC tells us. We care about what's best for you. We don't care about making the money. We don't care about the fame. We don't care about any of that. We care about you, the people.
Some of us are putting our lives on the line at this point. And that's a big deal. And continuing to do that, Justin, like the amount of backlash Justin has gotten for standing on principle for voters, for standing with constituents time and time again. This is what we need in DC. And if you guys, I know there's a lot of petty people. If you really want to be petty, make it so that the entire state of Tennessee flips. You want to see some good trouble? Let's flip all these districts. Send us to DC. See what happens for funsies. And then in 2 years, if we're not doing our jobs, vote us out.
It's 2 years. 2 years of trying something different. And I think
what do you got to lose?
I think it was my when I first met Victoria, I think that's the conversation that had me going down this path about how, again, normal folks, I'm talking to you. You have two umbrellas. You have the Republicans and you have the Democrats. And for me, I've lost faith on the right side of that argument. So I'm looking at folks like Victoria, like Joshua.
That's right. I was your first candidate. Okay, it's all coming back to me now. It's all coming back. The story. Oh my God, there's lore here, guys.
But it's how if you have a group of people under the Democratic umbrella that we have been voting for since 2012, since whatever, they've been in office for 20 years and we're here. That means that the current group of people that are under this umbrella, that are pushing this umbrella forward, they're pushing it in the wrong direction. But what I didn't understand is if you change the people within that group under the umbrella, you can change the makeup of that umbrella. Or you can change the trajectory of that. It's not necessarily, and it might be some of this, but the way I understand it after talking to a handful of you guys is you have the Democratic umbrella, and you have right now the people that are in control are the ones that that can pull the most money, so they get to make decisions. And because they're pulling money from corporate PACs, that's why it looks very corporate-y under the Democratic umbrella. That's why we don't see any daylight between what the Democrats are trying to do and what the Republicans are trying to do. There's very little space in between there. But if we get the Democratic umbrella full of progressive people, then we can start changing the direction in which that party is moving. So that's why it's important to get in there locally and get your folks in there that are not going to be taking PAC money. Whoever lines up with your values. My values are, I don't need my politicians to be having corporate PAC money, because corporations and me don't have the same, we're not even the same type of entity, let alone we have the same wants and needs. I want water and food and a house. A corporation don't give a fuck about any of that. It's just a legal entity. It doesn't need water. It
Carlos,
doesn't
I think
need
we
food.
lost you. Come back. Come back.
He was on a roll too.
He was on a roll. So sorry.
It says it's uploading, so hopefully it's hopefully we'll still be there. But
It's starting to tap out.
oh no! Damn it!
Just click.
I hope if this is recording, I'll fix it later. But let's see if this catches up.
You were on a roll, though. You had it. It's late, guys.
Yes. It's
it
my
really is
understanding
late.
that Riverside will upload it later. It's saved to your computer, Carlos. It should be uploading, even if it takes it a minute.
Okay, you're back. Kind of.
Am I back? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
All right. I forgot what I was saying, but I know it's getting late.
We should do this again.
We will do it again. All that to say, normal folks, please take a look at these grassroots candidates, Victoria and Joshua. And with that being said, Victoria, take a couple minutes to give your final pitch to the good folks of Tennessee 4.
All right, guys.
And let them know where they can find you too.
Yeah. We're in a primary. Josh and I are both in a primary, but I'm Victoria Broderick. I'm running for Congress in Tennessee's District 4. I ran as a first-time no-name candidate in 2024 in 5 months with 2 tiny humans, 4 fur babies at the time, fostering with a local humane society. I was able to raise money without taking a single corporate PAC dollar or a PAC money. I raised $120,000 as a small dollar donation candidate. I need your support. I need your help. Help me bring this through to the end, because if anyone's going to flip it, it's not going to be status quo. We need fighters in DC. We need fighters going up against the GOP, because what is going on here is not moderate. And we need change in DC. So if you would like to support me, like anything I say, follow me all the social medias, learn more about being involved in politics. I break it down. I talk about it, because education is elevation, like Conscious Lee says. And, if you want to donate to my campaign or see more about my platform, you can go to Victoria4Tennessee.org or .com, donate, look at my platform, follow me on all the social medias, and stay hydrated and vote blue. Josh.
Go ahead, Josh.
Y'all, thank you so much for listening to what is going on almost 2 hours at this point. I want to just reiterate what Victoria's talking about, right? I'm running up in Tennessee 7. We are watching within these primaries choices happening. I do think we're going to see a lot of Democrats across the country winning as we see this blue wave materialize. I don't want that to be for naught. I don't want another corporate Democrat in who isn't going to actually do the things that we need them to do. We need candidates like Victoria. We need candidates like myself in office, because we are the ones who are promising and pledging from day one to get shit done. You can find me on my website, salesforcongress.com. You can follow me on social media. But the greatest thing you can do, if you live in our districts, vote. If you live outside of our districts, you can donate or volunteer. You can even do phone banking to call people and get the word out there. But I think the greatest thing you can do is start having conversations with the people around you. Because when we build this community, that is going to be the driving force that lasts the test of time, that gets us through this storm we're facing right now so that we can get to the other side and get through it together.
What's your website?
Salesforcongress.com. SALES, the number 4, congress.com. Check it out.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Carlos, for having us. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos.
You're very welcome. Thank you for what folks don't understand right now. It's like literally bedtime for you guys. They're in Central. I'm over.
I got to work my liberal job in the morning, and I
she's
got
gotta-
more events.
She got to rest up because she's got to be fun size and Pharaoh
every day, twice on Sunday, guys.
But thank you guys again so much for not just coming on here to like share some of your stories with us, but all the time and effort that you guys are doing to like literally put skin in the game and to literally make change. You know, I walk around saying change ain't going to make itself, you know, and you guys are examples that I can go to every time and just say, look, when normal folks are tired of the bullshit, look at, they're going and they're getting it done. They're just getting out there and getting it done. So thank you guys for all of your hard work for trying to make this place a better place.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us, Carlos.
Thank you.
And with that, everybody, we're out.